Hello and welcome into Sorare with Laird. I'm Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdino on Sorare. Joined today by someone who I was just saying I'm so jealous at how much they're able to write and write well, and to give us all the previews of what's going to happen to Sorare in the next few months and years. b.hab, thank you very much for being here. I am super excited about this.
Thanks for having me on here. Obviously, what do they say? Long-time listener, first-time caller. Is that the?
There you go. Quote? We've obviously spoken kind of basically over Discord for a while, and I feel like anybody who has read your blog posts over the years kind of knows where you stand on a bunch of things. But you came out with one a couple days ago called Sorare: The Strategy, and I read through the whole thing, and I was just like, this is what should it be. And I had to remind myself that you started it basically with if we were starting from scratch, this is what it should look like. And I don't think Sorare can start from scratch, but do you think it's possible that they can implement your plan without starting or basically making us feel like we're starting all over?
I think that's obviously the big challenge, right? Is whenever you're trying to make a big change, how do you deal with the legacy stuff? And I think a lot of the things that we can do are definitely possible. It's just whether it's worth the headache of trying to convince people that it's the right decision with that. And my big thing is you can't be so stuck in what is or what was that you give up on how things should be, right? So whenever you're approaching making changes, improvements, you don't say, well, this is the way we've always done it, so this is how we have to keep doing it. Sometimes you have to kind of work through the pain to get to where you want to be with that.
We're going to get into that post. The whole discussion is not going to be about that. And so for those of you who were saying they had to do homework for the stream, you should go read it because it's an excellent read. But welcome everyone in. Tifosi was first, but I don't have that one. We do have Peter Stoyanov, the one we've been waiting for. That would be b.hab, not me. And then Sorare Soul will make Sorare ETH only be the suggestion, which is, we're not going to go down that one yet. But anyway.
We'll pause that one.
At least where I saw the ETH price the other day. Anyway, Yorkie, Yippee-ki-yay. I saw a Pico player there. Hoodwink, hello to you, sir. Before we get in, b.hab, can you tell everyone kind of like how you started Sorare and all of that? Because I feel like you're kind of known as the Sounders guy. And so how'd you get into Sorare and how did you become the Sounders guy on Sorare?
Yeah, so people talk about the Gary V boom. That was me. I was one of those. I came from the Gary V world. So I think even my PFP on Discord still is one of the Gary V characters.
Okay.
So I'm one of those people. Came in for the money, stayed for the game and the collecting. But yeah, as far as the Sounders go, I grew up in the Seattle area. I've been going to games since they were pre-MLS. Used to have season tickets. Still go to some, but just lifelong fan. So had to keep collecting. And it's one of those things. Joining Sorare at the start, and as you see me with the limited cards, being around when they launched the first set of those, it was kind of a cool idea to me to just say like, how cool would it be to have the whole history of Sounders limited cards for as long as this game lasts, and hopefully 20 years from now I can look back and have every Sounders team collected. I don't know, it just seems like a cool mini purpose to have on the side here. Makes it fun.
I love the 20-year optimism on Sorare. So we'll we'll leave that. At what point did you move from I'm here for the money and I like to play the game to kind of contributing like way more to the community in terms of really analyzing Sorare as a platform as opposed to just here's who I think is a good play this week? Because that is a pretty big jump when you're kind of involved in something like this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the intent for me wasn't to get into content creation or anything like that. The problem with things like Twitter is it's hard to communicate and articulate your point very well in short stints. As you probably see me get into periodic disagreements with people on Twitter and stuff like that. So it was really just a function of, I want to be able to make my whole case and have people hear it for what it is, and kind of tell the story that I'm trying to tell. And hopefully it resonates with some folks. But yeah, wasn't intending to be influential or anything, just wanted to make my voice heard in that sense. And this was how I knew how to do it.
So I want to admit something to you that I don't think I've told you before, but there was a time where you wrote like 2 or 3, maybe even more, posts where I read the whole thing and I was just like, yeah, I totally disagree with all of this and I can't get on board. And I'm here with my hat in hand to say I was wrong and you were right. And one of them was the kind of DNP conversation of how to solve those. And I think from what they've come up with, it feels like your response is there's still work to do. And but a lot of it is not like you came at this issue not from a I just want to win more and so this should be the rule, but it was actually you were the first one who kind of touched on the engagement part of it, of you want people to be engaged in the platform and to not have this moment where they're like, okay, check a lineup, it's gone, and you chuck your phone away and 4 days later you come back. Do you feel like we're moving in the right direction?
I would hope so. I mean, I definitely noticed a shift over the last few years where folks that were adamant that there should be no solution whatsoever have come around to the idea of like, man, DMPs really do suck. I don't enjoy them. And I think people are getting progressively closer to how do we fully improve it. I think most people are going to be happy with the 2 subs to start with. I think there will be a palpable benefit that people are going to see of like when it does fix one of their lineups. So like, yes, thank God we have this now. And then as soon as they get used to that and start seeing that they still have some DMPs left, like, what? Why can't I just fix this other one too? Right? It's going to be that one step closer. So I think there'll be more changes in the future, but how long it takes to get there, well, we'll see.
We'll see. So you mentioned that you've been here for a while and you keep playing. And Sorare is obviously very different now than it was during the Gary V boom, and every year is different from the last since it started. So what keeps you playing Sorare, given that it's way different now than it was like when you joined?
For me, my big thing is I like collecting. Obviously, the fantasy game aspect of it makes watching the games more enjoyable. I like tracking stats, things like that. But collecting is kind of my most prominent thing that I enjoy. So I'm actually trying to shift myself to focusing more on classic, and going and acquiring the cards that I've always wanted to chase. Something that kind of ties into the article a little bit, but as like a first principle with Sorare, I don't think you should ever have to buy the same scarcity of a certain player more than once if you don't want to. I think once you buy, a limited Messi, you shouldn't ever have to buy a limited Messi again if you don't want to. And then the goal should be to go and eventually acquire a rare and a super rare, etc. So for me, my goal is now to try and expand and get all of the players that I want. Mm-hmm. And once I have them, then try and get them in the next higher scarcity. And I think it's easier to do that chasing classic now than it is the in-season version. And again, if you're not concerned with chasing the ROI, I think it's just a more enjoyable experience for the short term there.
As someone who's been buying a bunch of classic cards recently, I couldn't agree more that that we can kind of get by with classic. Are you planning on playing Sorare 27 in terms of any in-season competitions there?
Gonna be taking a break this year, and just kind of seeing how things shake out a bit, and just get back to collecting. Was able to pick up a few more Man City cards here recently with some people selling off. So I was pretty happy about that.
Is it because you don't like the gameplay, or you're just ready to do something else?
I'm not big on chasing ROI. I think that is a quick way to kind of experience fatigue with the game, where it's like 99% of us aren't going to hit ROI in a given year. And if you're spending thousands of dollars every year, you're going to get tired of that pretty quick. I think most people have a shelf life of 3-4 years in this game. I think we've seen a lot of rotation in the bigger players over past seasons. I think we're kind of continuing to see that right now. So I think moving out of something that burns me out and getting back to something that I enjoy is kind of my renewed sense of purpose, and I guess.
Let's talk about the article for a little bit, because it's not just a here's how the Sorare gameplay should work. It's a much bigger vision in that respect. How did you even go about kind of putting that together? I'm going to at least pull it up on screen here. And for anybody who wants to see this, there's a link in the description of the video to check it out. But I mean, it read very much like I almost want to call it like a manifesto for Sorare. And it obviously touches on, like I said, it's a lot more than just these are the competitions we should have. And so like, where did you even start with kind of building this whole thing out?
It's something I've been stewing on for a few months, probably. With this, I think there's different ways to approach it. My background is I do process improvement for a living. I'm trying to kind of fix operations in that sense. My typical approach is to figure out what is the problem that we're trying to solve, and making sure that once we clearly know this is the thing that we need to go and fix, how do we go and come up with something that addresses that? So, I mean, I'm sure everybody could point out problems that they have with Sorare right now, be it progression or cost or whatever else. But with this one, wanted to take kind of a fresh pass at it, just because I know people have a history of if I start making proposals for here's how to change it from here, this is how it works today, to here's how I think it should work, most people are like, no, that's going to break somewhere along the way. So I wanted to at least frame it in the sense of, okay, if we just forget everything that we had, and don't limit yourself to that. What are the possibilities? And so that usually opens people up to multiple options, different considerations, and kind of more open-minded to different things there. So with this, I mean, for me, it's I played a lot of fantasy football, like U.S. fantasy football, for the last kind of decade here. So that was my experience as far as like what I've played. Played a little bit of FPL. Not a fan. I looked at MFL. Doesn't appeal to me, not being real players. But just looking at how fantasy football works and how big kind of other fantasy markets are in the U.S. here was sort of my benchmark of what I was kind of drawing from with this. So that was where I landed on the different league options. But one of the things that appealed to me with Sorare in the first place was the dynasty aspect of, hey, not only do you get to keep your players like you would in or any other dynasty league, but you actually own the players that you're keeping, and have that asset long term. So that to me is really the core of what makes Sorare, and building around that, and then finding ways to support that.
So I actually want to go to the kind of the very beginning here, because at least the beginning of the article, in terms of what you go through with this literally strategic planning hierarchy and the mission and vision. How easily did this come to you? I'll put it that way. Because even writing a mission statement for a company is not easy, and you're doing it literally for one that theoretically doesn't exist, meaning this one that you created. It's like, how the hell did you come up with this?
Well, I didn't come up with the hierarchy.
Yes.
That part of it, right? That one I stole from work stuff. The mission and vision stuff, that was me bouncing ideas off of my buddy Claude.
Okay.
Claude,
Always helpful.
Practicing with that there. So I had, some core ideas and sentiments I was trying to get across, and just kind of bounce back and forth there till I found something that resonated with me and I thought could apply, both to make sense to people and how it works, but also how I thought it should work. With that there.
I felt like I was reading a letter from the CEO in the most positive way that you can take that.
I almost feel like I'm defending a dissertation here a little bit.
Yeah, you should be. You should feel that way.
Yeah.
So again, we're not going to go through like every little bit of it, but while you were going through this, like I guess my real question was, when did you have this kind of light bulb moment of this graphic, basically, of the whole like redraft keeper dynasty and how that fits in with Sorare, or could?
I've had that framework of it being kind of a closed loop ecosystem where everything ties together, everything feeds off of itself. I've had that kind of nugget of an idea for a while. The reapplying it to this league structure of Redraft Keeper Dynasty didn't really sink in until about a week or two ago, when I was trying to write this, and I was like, oh, I think that's how I would do it. And so it kind of just stuck. But I think in order to have a functioning Dynasty league, it has to continuously generate new things. Which, where does that go, and where does it come from? So finding some way to recycle it back together seemed to make sense to me. Hopefully, it makes sense to other folks as well.
It did. I will say that it was actually not until like the depths of the Dynasty kind of specifics where I was like, oh, wait, I'm going to have to read this again, because it's like obviously gets more and more complicated as any game does the more you play. This is kind of a weird question, because obviously the answer is I assume is yes, but do you think this is all feasible? Like, could it work? Would it work?
I would like to hear your take, honestly, on where the challenge is and where you would pick it apart. Because in my head it works, right? But obviously turning theory into practice is a little bit different, right? So getting fresh perspectives on where people see drawbacks or issues with it, I'd be curious to try and defend against.
I think my biggest problem with trying to analyze all of it was I just couldn't get current Sorare out of my head, which you say like right away was like, hey, if we're starting clean, and I'm like, okay. And then I got to something like, oh, but like, we can't do that because of this. And it's like, well, this is what I was supposed to ignore. And so if we started over, and obviously when you have a situation where you're talking about keepers and dynasty leagues, which for people who play, kind of most of the US fantasy sports are pretty familiar with it. But you explain in the article what they each mean, but I was having trouble just picturing year one. And it's like in year one, obviously you don't have the dynasty and the keepers because we're all just kind of starting fresh. But it was almost like it was easier for me to picture year 7 than year 1. And I don't know if that was good or not, but I think the overarching thing I came back to was, again, I think it's a problem with just the way that I was thinking about it in terms of where Sorare has been, but it's like, this does still kind of require us to buy every year, but not to the extent that we have to now. And I think a lot of people, I think there's an inherent advantage in Web3 games where if you get in early and you kind of like stock up on things, if the platform succeeds, then you don't really have to keep buying year over year. And this has elements of that for sure. And it feels like Sorare is moving away from that because they found a revenue system that worked better for them than what they had previously, which clearly did not work. And so each time I would read something, it was like, all right, does this could a company like this survive? And I'm speaking now, and I'm just not sure. And I just don't think there is a way to like simulate this out, be like, oh yeah, this is why it works, or this is why it doesn't work.
To go immediately to this would require a huge leap of faith, obviously.
Yeah.
To make any sort of grandiose change, it usually doesn't happen all at once. It would usually require phases of changes, right? So, maybe they change the common scarcity first. And, like right now with the packs, you've got the like 5, 10, I don't know how large the set card boosts get up to right now. But right, so like maybe the first change is just changing the bonus on those common boosts and seeing how that plays into the game mode. And then it's, okay, well, what if we create a side game for a little while to test out the functionality of grouping all the scarcities and doing that in an isolated sort of pilot experiment. And maybe the extra scarcity or something like that is a one-time card. Like I've heard proposals in the past for like what if there were cards that were released that were like a one-time use type of thing, or you could only use them a certain number of times, something like that. Where it's like, hey, like what if we had this additional reward? It was a temporary thing. We just want to see how it works, introducing a new card into the ecosystem and what happens. So there's little smaller things you can do kind of along the way to test stuff out and hopefully work in towards the direction of what I outline here, or something close to, right? And all of this is not to say this is the way it should be done, but hopefully it gives the folks at Sorare other ideas of what's possible or other things to consider as far as how to integrate stuff. So my whole goal is just trying to make it so that there's more cohesiveness across the game.
Speaking of which, you've kind of long been a proponent of basically every card competing against each other, meaning not to separate scarcities as much as they have, and they're starting to kind of bring scarcities closer together now. With obviously you can play rares and hot streaks and all that stuff, and but you've said for a while just this whole idea that like it sounds like every card should be able to compete against every card, with the goal of getting people to want the higher scarcity still, as opposed to instead of what I've always described as kind of like horizontal progression versus vertical progression. And you're still very much people should be striving for the most unique cards on the platform.
Yeah, that's where there's a lot of sort of features or aspects that people want out of the game. And I think they would just show up in different ways, right? So one of the common talking points is like, what about the little guy, the person on the small budget? Like, how do they compete, right? That's where the purpose of a redraft league is to start on mostly level footing, right? So I almost think about the redraft keeper in Dynasty League as like a beginner, intermediate, advanced game mode almost, where it's like, hey, I'm just starting out. I'm learning the ropes, or I don't have much money to put into the game yet, or I don't want to spend that much yet. Maybe your focus is the redraft league, where it's like, hey, all of the cards are, within 5% of each other. And you could very easily get up 1, 2, 3% from winning the common packs. And, the people that spend on, say, the 5% cards, what are they getting, a 2% bump? Is that really going to make a huge difference at the end of the day? Probably not in the micro. But you still find ways to introduce money into a mostly free-to-play game. But that's also where, like, with any sort of cheaper or free-to-play game, I think there's a balance of, like, wanting to get people to spend, but also giving them the option to grind for some of those common cards. So that's where, like, I think I had a footnote at the bottom about, like, sets of, if give people a way to grind for the common packs for those 1, 2, 3% cards. So that way, if they want to put more time into the game and not money, they have a mechanism to go try and acquire those by putting effort in as opposed to money. Mm-hmm. So it's just that balance of like, I don't want to spend all the time. I want to fast track that. So I'm going to spend money. So it's just that give and take of trying to hit both audiences.
Welcome into JPS here. Said he loved the article. Brilliantly written as always. Let's talk about set for a little bit, because set is, I feel like something that you came up with about a year ago. Maybe it wasn't quite that long, but I remember you were the first one I read that was like, there really does need to be an unlimited scarcity that we'll all play. And this was one of those where I read that and I was like, nobody's going to play that. I'm not going to, or it wasn't so much nobody's going to play that. It was more like, that's not for me. And now I'm just a total set donkey. Where do you stand with set?
I think it's fit for purpose for what it's trying to do right now, which is create an additional revenue stream, right? So I think everybody knows part of the limitation with having a finite supply of cards, especially a finite supply of cards that more or less get released all in one big batch. So Sorare probably wants to have a revenue stream that is more consistent throughout the year. So I think that's why they do like 2-month increments, so that way they can release it in smaller batches and kind of spread the revenue stream out. But also just making it time constrained changes the purpose and function of it a little bit, so it makes it more palatable for folks. But then you're also able to release new designs with that and kind of create more incentives to get in that way. As far as collectibles, I honestly kind of think of it as like the pro cards that you keep and use forever. I think of those as like true cards. All of the like common cards, set cards, I equate those as like stickers, where it's like cheaper, easier to collect. Like that's just how I process it, where it's like, it's cool to collect both, but they're kind of like, they're a little bit different in that sense. So I think they work, but I just don't know how will they work in the grand scheme of how Sorare should work, if that makes sense.
I'm having this like, I don't think it's an epiphany, but Sorare stickers would have been such a phenomenal name for set and arcade. I think you were the first person actually that pointed out that you didn't like the name set because it wasn't an adjective. Like,
I still don't like it.
Yeah. And to be honest, I didn't really think one way or the other, but as soon as you were like, yeah, the others are adjectives, limited, rare, super rare, unique, and this is just a noun. And I was like, no. And now had they used stickers, which is a noun, I think I would have been perfectly fine with it. I almost want to just call it stickers from now on, actually, and just forget about the word set.
I will take it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that really threw me off, actually. I don't even remember what I was going to say next because I didn't write it down, because as soon as you said stickers, I was like, oh my God. So is there something that Sorare can do, or what can they do to move in this direction if they, because they can't start from zero. They can create a brand new game, or somebody else can come along, apparently get a FIFA Pro license and make some AI generated cards, and maybe everybody will be fine with that. But what can Sorare do kind of in their current makeup that gets us closer to kind of what you were proposing in your article?
It depends a little bit what people are most open to first in that sense. I think with a focus being on stabilizing what I call the redraft mode, I think that's probably where I would start if I was Sorare. Just how can we make some adjustments to that? Again, whether that's changing the common cards and how they work, or implementing a side game for combining a few of the scarcities together. It just depends where their mind is at, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to answer without knowing exactly where Sorare is heading to at the moment, with all their dev work.
Where, from the outside perspective, where do you think they're heading? Like, where do you think they are trying to go?
That's where, like, even thinking about what they want out of the game, because they've shifted their focus so much year over year, it's hard to kind of project outward, like what that trajectory looks like. So, like, even just trying to predict or guess what Sorare wants, I honestly don't have a clue.
Yeah.
Other than finding new ways to draw revenue in, which is not going to work as a business. You need kind of purpose behind what you're doing and why you're doing it. Not just saying, I want more money, give me more money.
Yeah.
So I hope they have a bigger plan. But in the absence of that, that's where I was like, hopefully this helps guide you. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the overarching issue with analyzing ways to improve Sorare is that I think for a long time they had this vision of what they would love to work, like a platform that they wanted to work, and it just didn't. And it very quickly went from like, look, this could work, to, oh, this actually very much does not work, and then had to kind of adjust. And I feel like they're constantly in this kind of like push-pull situation of this is how we want all of this to work. And then they get to reality, and that sounds very harsh, but they get to reality and it's like, oh, it just doesn't work. And so they've almost pivoted so much now to, now we know how to make money, so let's just keep doing that and focusing on that. And now you can't, as a platform like this, a fantasy sports platform, collectible platform, whatever it is, this idea of like, let's do whatever it takes to make money makes it sound like they're just out to rob us, when like realistically, if you're a business that sells something and they sell cards, like they have to provide some benefit to the user. I'm not talking about like card utility, but like you need to do something that makes people want to buy your thing. And so when everybody's like, oh, they're just doing this for money, and it's like, well, yes, but again, they need mechanisms in place where potential customers are like, oh yes, I want to go buy that thing. And I don't know if the current mindset is better than what they had of the let's make the platform and then find out if we can make money, as opposed to now where they have a very clear way of making money. Strangely, it feels like it's set and not pro, but that's another conversation for another time. But I kind of agree with you that it's kind of difficult to tell like exactly what their mission is. Like to use, like, to go back to the article of like, what is the mission? Because I feel like there are a lot of users who are like, yeah, the mission is like make as much money as possible. And it's like, that's not a mission. That's just any business that exists. But or maybe it's the vision that it's difficult for us to see. And when we hear Nicholas say like, we want to be a place for sports fans, and it's like, I'm not sure that's a vision or a mission or a vision.
Yeah, it's hard to see how it comes together. With that, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you guys noticed. There's a recent change that was discussed, and I think they just implemented it with the unique cards, where just because there aren't enough worthwhile ones to craft, and it kind of messes up their auction cycles of what to reward and stuff like that, they're moving to, hey, we're going to auction all the uniques, and we'll add some cash to the classic pool, and then kind of subsidize it with the super rare essence. But I think if you kind of follow that logic down at scale, they're going to run into the same issue of like, hey, giving out the pro cards in Classic at all scarcities doesn't work in the long run if you actually grow the game how we all say we want to grow the game. Where if we had 1 million users,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. You're going to give out 10 essence to people at a time. Like it doesn't work. So I think if they get big enough, I think they'll just naturally run into a need of like, what do we replace cards in essence with, or what do we replace pro cards, I should say, in essence with on the Classic Dynasty side. And I'm curious to see what they come up with. I like my idea of a new scarcity that's reward only. So that way, if there's benefit to holding the cards, because you become the only source of how to acquire those, and it helps kind of backfill you for starting the next years. So it's a way to kind of get people that commit to you spending up for kind of the classic cards, and getting it so that they have a way to get more money back, but it isn't extractive from Sorare in that sense. Where it's like Sorare can keep growing, but all the more money that comes in out of that classic system is coming from the users as opposed to coming from Sorare. So it hopefully works in that sense. And I mentioned in the article as well, but the tying rewards to scarcity cards, where it's like, well, hey, are you going to spend more if we increase the prize pool, or are you going to spend less if we decrease the prize pool? We're not going to increase the prize pool until you spend more. Like the relationship between how much a user spends on a higher scarcity card versus the prize pool right now is very much linked. And I think you have to break that link in order to get the most money out of the cards.
So there were a couple things. I'm just going to read this section because it's kind of what we were talking about. Not kind of, it's exactly what we're talking about with the rewards. It said, I would not give out any of the scarce cards as prizes, only cash and commons. Giving out the scarce card seems paradoxically bad. The larger the game gets, the more you have to give out, meaning the less revenue you take. And this is don't give out a finite supply to an infinite audience. Otherwise you end up with essence. So is it reasonable that they could move to this unique reward system in the other scarcities of paying cash and selling every card?
That's where I think on the Dynasty side, no, I don't, because the cash doesn't scale in that sense, because otherwise you get people that spend up once on the cards and then just continue to extract from the ecosystem. That was kind of what we saw.
That's how we got here in the first place.
That's how we got here in the first place. That doesn't work, right? So I think pulling most of the cash out of the classic kind of Dynasty side, I do think that bit was necessary to drive new revenue in to feed that. So I think the cash being given back out on the front end, I think that makes sense to me. And I think that split between what I call the redraft and the keeper leagues, because those are where people are buying the new cards. That model I think still maps. But that's where on the Dynasty side, it's okay, if cash doesn't scale, the pro cards don't scale. What do we put as a reward there instead? And is it a game boost? Is it a new card? Is it some, merch doesn't scale, tickets don't scale, right? It's like you have to find something. So I think that thing has to be free to Sorare. I think it has to be infinite and theoretical supply. But you still want it to somehow tie into the rest of the game. And those are kind of the parameters that I see. And for me, that was just where I landed on a new scarcity. So then it's, okay, well, where does that scarcity fit with everything else? And it's like, well, I want to give out cards as rewards that are better than anything that Sorare offers, because as Sorare, I want them to give me the money on the good cards.
Yeah.
But if I still give a little bit of a nugget back to the users that are playing in that mode, where it's, hey, these rewards are going to be better than the stuff that you can essentially get for free off of us. I think that sort of middle buffer area is hopefully a happy medium.
Mm-hmm. Let's go through. Yorkie said, "What about some kind of Sorare coin?" Oh boy. Let's go through the three because the I'm not sure everybody who is not playing kind of American fantasy sports fully get the concepts, but so we have the redraft league, which is kind of like brand new every single season. The keeper, where you keep some of your players, and then Dynasty, where you have kind of all of your classic cards, and you actually kind of scaled up the lineups throughout that. Meaning Dynasty was SO11, which I like started sweating just thinking about making SO11 lineups again. But can you kind of explain to people who I'll say don't know how to read, kind of like how each one works? And we'll start, I guess, with just how the redraft works every year.
Yeah, with the redraft league, that's so like in a typical fantasy league, right? There's only one of each player that people can get, and it's, hey, we're starting from scratch. Nobody has anybody. We're going to go draft and take picks of who we want on our team, and only I get this guy, only you get that guy, and we take turns picking our players. And by the end of it, hopefully we've come out with relatively even quality lineups, and then it just becomes a choice and skill at that point. You got to trade in and out of players with other folks in your league. But really, the main driver behind that is, hey, we don't let past success dictate future success. So every year it's, hey, we're starting from scratch, and best man wins going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the purpose behind that one. So that was where it's like, okay, yeah, that's balancing between old users versus existing users. And it's like, hey, you still need to have a mechanism for new folks joining the game to come in and be able to compete with people that have been here for 5 years. So that's kind of the natural path for people to start with, first coming in. The keeper league, it's like, hey, I picked, different leagues do it differently. You have different rules of how many keepers you have. But in a nutshell, it's, I picked somebody last year. I really, really like them. I really want to have them moving forward. And so I'm going to choose to keep them in my lineup for the next year. But I have to find new players to add to them going forward. I'm not going to only build off of previous choices. It's mostly starting from scratch, but you get the benefit of, like, I got some things right before. I want to keep that going. And then the Dynasty League is like, typically it's really difficult because once you get your team set, and there's no more players to pick, each new draft is only focused on the rookies and kind of the newcomers into the league. And so it's like, you're trying to predict who is going to be successful 5 years, 10 years from now, to add into your team. And you have to really trade back and forth with other managers to round out your team and kind of balance, like, hey, this person's going to help me this year. This person should be good in a few years. Maybe this person's at the end of their career and tailing off. How do I want to balance those things across my team and still win now, but also not screw myself entirely for future years? So it's really just a continual progression with that. But applying it to Sorare, because we get to keep our cards, that's where Sorare naturally falls into the Keeper League, Dynasty League portion.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think, its competitive edge of, like, yeah, we're keeping these players, but we actually have the asset behind them to hold on to. And so I think that's where Sorare thrives and where it can attract people. It's just, again, how do you complement it with something that has recurring revenue, has new players coming in, new supply, and make a holistic game in that sense.
So do you envision people playing all three, or is it once you've been in the game for a while, like you're only playing Dynasty?
People, oh, did I lose you?
No, you're still here. Still there, yeah.
My computer froze for a second. People would obviously have the choice to kind of either come in and stay in Dynasty or even go straight to Dynasty if they want to. But instead of continually extracting money from Sorare in that sense, what they're getting out of it in my example would be those uncommon cards, which are free to Sorare, but so they can, spend up to get good cards to do well in the Dynasty mode. But all the money that they're getting out of it is coming from other managers continuing to spend. So it would work in that sense. But it becomes kind of user preference as far as where do you want to commit money to? Do you want to try and win your money back in the first year? Do you want to just try and progress year over year? I think one of the key aspects of how I have this set up, what I mentioned before was like, I don't think people should have to buy the same scarcity of a certain player more than once if they don't want to. Like if I already have Messi rare and I'm going to use him as a keeper going into the next year, I don't have to buy any Messis the following year. So I can choose to spend my money on in other areas, but it also means I can concentrate my future spending into fewer and fewer players. So people think like, oh, I'm never going to be able to afford another rare or another super rare. But if I'm not having to rebuy the same players every year, well, that means I can start to bankroll the money that I'm putting in and then reconcentrate that spending into one player or two players instead of 5 players or 10 players. So by concentrating that spending, I can buy either better players or I can buy higher scarcity players. So it allows you to reallocate and progress to yourself without relying on the game to reward you with a higher scarcity card. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I just, not that I get hung up on it, but is this kind of like multi-level, and if you're listening to this, I apologize, but there's a card rarity tiers graphic from the article on screen, but basically this multi-tier unlimited scarcity option that is kind of the way that you move in. And so this kind of solves the reward problem of if we have essentially infinite possible rewards, we can facilitate the infinite number of users that could potentially come in and not completely just wreck the game by giving out 1% of a card every week or so. And then you use those, like you can use those everywhere, but obviously the deeper you get into the game, Keeper and Dynasty, like you'll want those higher scarcity cards. And is the idea that basically, I guess my question is like, when do you, like, where does the issuance of new, like limited rare super unique cards come from? Like, do they sell those every year and then you can, so it's the same idea.
Yes, it would still sell those, right? So, so for the redraft and keeper leagues, right? Since you only get a few players to carry over in the keeper league and you don't get any players to carry over in the redraft league, you're still buying all new limited rares, etc., or you're still trying to buy uncommons from other folks, or you're still trying to find ways to win what I call the common plus here, just for lack of a better name there. You're still trying to buy those things or acquire those things to win the money back in those two leagues. And so it's still, do you want to be uber competitive in the keeper league and buy up scarcities and kind of risk going against folks that may have some better cards, or are you more focused on like, I just want it to be mostly equal footing, in which case I'll focus on redraft league. But both of those options would have money coming out of it. And more importantly to me, they're still PvP, where the money is coming back from, as opposed to the PvE. So,
let's actually touch on that. Where is PvE in your game?
So that's where, like, I think PvE can be a helpful complement to the game, but I don't think the money should be coming back from there. So be it through a game mode like sets, or I mentioned at the bottom, I think it would be cool to have kind of a friendly social league where, you get 10 people together to create their own league for the year, where they're competing against each other, and they only have, like a normal fantasy where they only one person gets each player. But in those side games is where I would reward those common plus cards. So by putting more time into the game and participating in those PvE environments or those friendly social PvP games. That's where you create kind of more paths to acquiring those common plus cards. So if you put more time into the game, you get some better cards out of it to then help you in the redraft mode or the keeper mode from there. So it's a complement as opposed to the main game.
Harry Trays is just shaking his head. Yep. How do you envision the prize breakdown in terms of like redraft, keeper, and dynasty? Are like dynasty where you get the best rewards, or is it kind of spread out evenly because of some reason?
So I put it in the table towards the bottom, I think a little bit, but there. So I don't know exactly how the revenue is split between sets right now versus pro cards. I would imagine, especially in this environment, majority of the money is going to be coming from people that are bidding on the auctions. So I would imagine that keeper league mode, where it's all scarcities together, is probably going to be the main source of revenue, which is probably where I would award most of the money. Open to changing that, just depending on how that split falls. But people that are spending money on packs, common packs, people that are buying limited cards, say, to use in the redraft league, you would still have an allocation of money going to that redraft league. I would only put sort of that sprinkle of money into the Dynasty League. I think it's a nice benefit and kind of value add to have podium be rewarded in Dynasty, to give something to chase, but not so much that it's going to take away from Sorare. The card rewards, I had it set up where in the redraft and keeper league, you could only get the common plus, as I call it. Dynasty is the only place where you could acquire the uncommon, that new scarcity card, both to incentivize playing Dynasty, but also as a way to say, hey, if you're going to commit to playing the game long term, here's a way for you to get money back out of it by getting something that nobody else can acquire from Sorare. They have to come get it from you. So if I give you that path, I'm saying this is your how you're going to get your money out of it year over year in the Dynasty mode, is by selling these new cards that we give just to you. You find managers to sell those to. So it's kind of a little bit a different mechanism depending on what the intent is there.
So the only way to get the uncommons is to win them in the Dynasty League?
That was how I drew it up.
Yeah. And are they unlimited?
Yeah, so
infinite. I don't know which term you use that doesn't get. Yeah, although in fairness, so love to use the same words for multiple things. But anyway.
Yeah, I was trying to weigh up if I like in that Dynasty mode, if I would only award uncommon cards, or if I would do a mixture of uncommon cards with the common plus in that Dynasty mode again. I think you maybe do some of both. You can maybe even do some sort of choice option of like, hey, do you want a tier 4 common plus, or do you want a tier 2 uncommon? And maybe giving people some flexibility there as far as like, do they want to try and get an uncommon card to hopefully sell, or do they want to try and find a card that's more likely to improve their gallery for use in the other leagues, right? So I think there's some optionality there that I tried to leave a bit open-ended and not exactly define with this, but I think giving people a way to get money from Dynasty that isn't directly from Sorare was sort of the goal with that piece of it.
Right. I don't think any of this is possible as a new game, because it kind of relies upon, well, things that don't exist right now. But have you thought about creating a side game of any kind for Sorare?
I have. It's a goal.
Okay.
I was trying to learn how to code a little bit. Didn't get too far with that. Have a renewed sense of purpose with Claude here, where it's like, oh, I might actually be able to vibe code something myself to release. So I've, had a few ideas as far as, whether I do that friendly social league, whether I, build my own dynasty league if Sorare doesn't, or finding something else to do. I had a few other ideas that aren't games as well. One thing that I want to see analytics around, completely unrelated tangent, but is just the trying to find like what the true value of a card is. So I mentioned this maybe with you at Sorare data of like, hey, what should this card be worth versus what it's selling for, right? So, doing some analysis around like, hey, if it's this age of player or this position of player or in this league, what's an average card of that worth, and trying to project that out, or maybe comparing like what should the cost multiplier be between scarcities, and how it actually surfaces. You can kind of get a general sense for it just looking at sales, but looking at it in the aggregate across all cards, all players, it's hard to really gauge.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of like, that's one thing that I want to build or see somebody else build, is just that kind of analytics side of it. So maybe one day, but I got still learning Claude here. So give me a few more months.
Do you think that there's a kind of an inherent issue with valuing these things because each one is so specific to the utility and the rewards that you can win with that card, basically?
It's a challenge. My issue is that, as you've mentioned on here a few times before, where card prices are dictated both from the two people that bid on the first one, and then also whatever the last sale is. And it's like somebody can spike the last sale because they're impatient, or somebody can tank the last sale because they found somebody that doesn't care. And it just completely skews what cards are actually worth. And trying to find what a fair trade is tends to be more difficult than it should. So finding some way to be like, all right, guys, we can agree like it should be in this range. I think would be helpful to create a healthier ecosystem, I guess, and seeing that out. So I don't know. That's personal goal there.
Going to the collectible part of it, do you collect other like digital assets, I guess I would call them? And if so, like where does Sorare fit into that kind of digital collectible universe?
I've got a little bit on the Gary Vee side, a little bit on the digital, also on the physical side. He's got trading cards, he's got Topps cards, he's got comic books, plushies. I don't know, he's got a bunch of stuff he's coming out with for that. So I've been trying to acquire those just to be a participant there. But Sorare has been the bane of my existence, and where the money goes. So it doesn't leave much room for other stuff there.
I ask because I wasn't sure. Like, I feel like every so often there's a tweet shared where there's like some Panini NFT that sells for a ton, and we notice that it's more than a comparable Sorare card with basically only collectible value, and we're kind of like, wait, what? ours is better than that. Like, why? And so I was kind of curious, like, why doesn't Sorare hit that? Like, why isn't it is part of that collectible universe right now?
I think that's where tying it directly to rewards pulls it away.
Okay.
It's twofold. One,
too much utility? Oh no.
Yeah, almost. It almost works against you there. I mean, I think with that example, I think it's just a branding thing where it's like not necessarily a fault of Sorare, but just like, Panini's been around for, I don't know, 40 years, whatever. I don't know how long, a long time. Yeah. Where it has that sense of like, oh, this is why it's worth this much. But it has nothing to do with the thing itself. I think if Sorare continues for a long enough time period, it can build into that kind of long-term brand. But they also have to make the cards be a collectible and not just a utility function.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, finding other ways to incentivize collecting, I think, is necessary. So part of the, the status that comes with like, oh, I've got, the only unique so-and-so, or I've got the rookie card of so-and-so. I think making that something to brag about and showcase outwards, I think is necessary. But obviously in order to drive that in the in-house ecosystem, you have to find a way to reward that isn't just financially.
I feel like they have this issue basically that they think that they're selling collectibles, but what they're actually selling is some sort of like utility tool that may be collectible as opposed to a collectible with utility. And I think they think they're selling the latter when they're really just selling the former. And they're selling the former in terms of this thing has utility, meaning play it in a lineup and win cash. And yeah, maybe it'll be collectible one day, as opposed to the opposite. Buy this collectible and use it in this fantasy game. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's you have to get it to a point where everybody wants that card and not just a few people.
Right.
So that's where it's like, people that don't buy, any unique cards, for example, because they think they have to spend 20 grand on a team of unique players to get anything out of it. But if they can buy, a cheap unique card to help their lineup, because they can use that unique card with non-unique cards, well, then you start to pull people upwards and add to the number of folks that are trying to buy those and want to buy those and are pursuing those on the market. And also giving people a reason not to sell those top cards because they get prolonged benefit out of them, right? So it's rewarding that holding aspect, and also finding a way to pull people upwards.
Yorkie said, I play the game purely for utility. Some of my cards are pretty and I never sell them, but realistically it's utility. So I think that actually kind of implies that they are collectible. Some of them are. Like, I think when we say like Sorare cards should be collectible, I don't think that means that every single card should be collectible, but there should be some that people want. And I think that does exist right now. Like I have a Michael Olise limited Ballon d'Or card, and I've gotten like loads of offers on that card for like similar, same season, but regular Olise plus whatever cash amount. Or somebody offered me the cursed edition and like $20 the other day. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know how many there are actually. Now I'm curious how many of these cards exist, but they are like scarce. Not everybody can have one. And I feel like that kind of itself proves that they do have some sort of collectible value. Sorry, it's one of these things. Let's see, 25 total. So there's 21 limiteds and 4 rares. And so I don't want to say like we need Sorare to be more collectible and think that like every card should be collectible, because anytime you go to you do a box break, like most of those cards, you're just like, oh yeah, there's not, yeah, exactly. And that's how I kind of look at Sorare, that a lot of them are just going to throw, most of them are throwaways. But what does Yorkie say? You will hate me, but I'm going to sell one of my Brunos, and I think it's the sporting one as its lowest XP. Yorkie, I would consider buying that one. So don't list that card yet, please. Anyway, but Yorkie had another one. Theoretical idea, but if Sorare got rid of all utility after the season, would you both still play? So you purely get the 1 year and then a card to look at. There are a lot of OGs who think that's the case now anyway. But anyway.
I was going to say it's not too far off.
It's not too far, right?
It feels like that.
To be honest, I think the issue is less the lack of utility at the end of the season, because I do think there are cards that, like this Bruno card that he's considering selling. Holy shit! Is it the Jersey Mint? Oh no, it's not. If I think most of us are like, oh, I have this Bruno collectible at the end of the season. It's literally all of the other ones that you're like, I don't want these anymore. And it's the utility, the post in season, the classic utility of these cards is actually less about the stars. Cause like the stars, you're like, oh, I own this Bruno card. Cool. It's the other ones that you're like, I don't know who this guy is. He's some random player in the Jupiler League that I don't follow, but he scores well, and that's why I had him on Sorare. It's like, that's the card you want utility, because you're like, I don't actually want this card, but if I can get something out of it, then it's useful to me. And so it's like, it's almost like those are the cards that we want utility for afterwards.
If you went straight, like only in season, that's hard because you're cutting out the portion that makes Sorare to me. So then it's like, how much do you want to risk of like only chasing ROI? And like, and that's where like, if you're not hitting your ROI on the year, and most often you aren't, how much are you willing to keep putting in year over year? Like if that's the goal with it. So then I think that it has that element of risk of like, how much is too much of asking people to put in consistently, knowing that they have a 1 year deadline.
Right. Yeah, I feel like you're almost forcing. Like you're almost forcing somebody to come up with utility for the cards that you keep. Like the way that I was thinking of it was, could there be some sort of benefit for the following season if you were like, yeah, just burn all of these cards I don't want. And then inevitably, and I can't believe I just brought up the concept of burning in Sorare because I cannot.
There's a little bit inside when you said that.
But theoretically, that makes them more scarce and possibly collectible at that point. But yeah, I don't know. I can't believe I just said that. Sorry, that really threw me off.
Been on a rabbit hole with that one. I never quite understood I understood the intent behind burning, but yeah, like just scarcity doesn't, or like, yeah, just a limited quantity isn't the only thing that makes something collectible. Like people have to still want those cards in the first place. So like you have to give them a reason to want to acquire it. But
I never understood the people who are very pro burning. I just have never seen I've never seen a platform have burning be a main part of it and have that provide any sort of benefit to anybody.
It's always a last ditch resort to add value because something else is broken.
Sean said, isn't this the vault? You get rid of the cards for a small benefit. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, that was their replacement option because they don't want to delete cards from the ecosystem.
Right.
And serves a similar purpose. I still have problems with the vaulting, unvaulting rules, but that's me.
Which way do you want it to go?
I think there should be a nuke option button of like, I want to unvault all of my cards. If somebody, people are trying to sell their galleries right now, and it's like, okay, I can't even get out of this game when I want to quit because I have to spend the next 3 years unvaulting one at a time. Like, if people want to leave the game entirely, they're their cards. Like, the vault is just there as like a temporary promise of like, hey, we're going to remove it from using and trading. And in the meantime, we're going to give you a 0.02% bump on your rewards. You still own the card. It's still yours to do with what you want. If I want to sell it immediately and exit the game, I should have that option. So I think there should be some, get the fire extinguisher out, break the glass, and allow me to unvault. I don't know if it's like once a year, once every 6 months or something. There should be, or if I got a bunch of players that transfer and I want to unlock half a dozen cards, okay, I want to give me that player back. It's my card.
Do you think that the point of the vault was to take the cards out of competitions or out of the secondary market?
I think Sorare wished it was out of competitions, where like I think they wish it was people, putting good players into the vault. I think in reality, it's just people are putting all of the cards that they aren't using anyway because they have too many that they've acquired, and they're just extras sitting around, where it's not quite achieving its full purpose in that sense.
Yeah.
So
I asked that because I think the mass unvaulting basically, then, if you're trying to sell all your cards, and let's say you just mass unvault and sell them one by one, like inevitably the floor on all those cards goes down because you're like a new seller. But I never really thought that was the purpose of the vault. From a gameplay perspective, it did feel like, oh, people are going to vault Yamal because it's so helpful. And so that's a Yamal that people don't have to compete against. And we're getting to this point where there's so many classic cards. And when we have classic competitions, so many lineups. And the easy way to solve this is to get people to vault cards. And so now there's fewer whatever good cards out there. But the benefit, of vaulting great cards is too small. So like there's no reason for you to do it. And I'm curious if their vault idea was also to say like, well, we don't want people just making these cards get less and less valuable because they're, undercutting each other and all this. And so if they vault them, then they can't sell them and all of that. But there is an inherent like, wait, I thought I owned this card. Why can't I sell it? And so I wonder if you could unvault and basically like this card is eligible to be sold today, but is not eligible for competitions for 6 months or whatever the time frame is.
I'm on board with that. I hate you brought it up, but yeah, I hate that you also can't give or take offers on cards that are sealed. I'm like, that's one of my chase cards I'm going after.
Yes.
I can't like let me try and get the guy to sell it to me. Like let me offer something. I don't know. That's weird.
I don't even remember what card it was, but there was a card recently that I saw that was vaulted, and I was just like, do I want to take the time and effort to track this person down, to ask them to unvault it, unseal it, take it out of the vault, whatever, so that they can then sell it to me? And the problem is like, if they were like, yeah, I would totally do that, but I actually did it yesterday, so I have to wait 2 more weeks before I can do yours. But I also have this other guy who wants this other one, so you can have it in 4 weeks. And it's like, just let me buy it. I would even be fine if I could buy it and it automatically goes into my vault and I have to wait 2 weeks to unvault it. Let me have that.
Somewhat fair. Yeah. It's, and almost the rule would rather be because what you're trying to prevent is people abusing the vaulting, unvaulting back and forth. Right. So like, why not just make it where if people unvault a card or unseal it, I think it's probably the better way to say it.
That's the verb.
They can't re-seal it within a certain time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't like put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out. It's like, okay, well, if I'm unsealing it because I want to use it or sell it, I'm not allowed to put it back in the vault for X amount of time. I think that is a better use of that.
I can hear Andreas talking about how the point of the vault is so that the cards were locked away. And so all of our suggestions of taking them out, he's like, that's not the rule. But he did admit the other day that the fact that they changed the vault bonus recently for rare cards without letting people decide if they want to keep all of their cards in the vault is I'm not going to put words in his mouth. Yorkie said, I worked out the other day, it would take 11 years to unvault my cards. I bought my full vault from the market. The cheapest cards for the ceiling value didn't actually vault cards that I owned. So that's, I think, the problem is that they ended up getting probably millions of cards in the vault that nobody actually wants. And that wasn't the point. Yeah. Right. Right.
Okay. You're just giving out more money now.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, now that we've solved the vault problem, let me see. I don't think I had anything else on the article.
I had a question for you. How do you? What's your stance on XP?
Yeah. So I in your article, it talked about basically only XP in Dynasty. And I did kind of love the idea of 0.101% per day. I think I've been here too long, and I've had some of my cards forever. And so I think XP is really important, and I love it when I have an advantage with it. But I also play a ton of arena where it doesn't count. So it doesn't matter to me. I think... So I've kind of gone back and forth with XP. The reason I really liked Arena is because I could buy a 0 XP card and be just as competitive as somebody who had one with 30,000 XP on it. But then when I have my 30,000 XP cards in Arena, I'm like, boy, this is a total waste. But I think that I feel like it's a great reason to hold cards. And I feel like Sorare doesn't always have these mechanisms built in where it benefits you to hold on to cards, and that's the best one they have so far.
So the current XP system as it works now, where I don't even know if it's still like based on your team's score that they played in, or if that's still the math for that.
I think it is.
And then it's
I think it's just divided by 5 or 7 or 9 or whatever we're playing these days.
It was one of those things like I could never track how much XP I was getting.
Yeah.
It never resonated. I'm like, okay, I'm getting XP to some players sometimes. I don't know how much. It happens every now and again. I'm like, oh, hey, somebody leveled up. Cool.
Yep.
But like, it doesn't track very easily to me. I didn't like the shift when we talked about like rewarding XP. I didn't like the shift away from the passive XP, because when we buy more cards than we can level up, we're holding cards long term, but not getting the benefit of holding them long term because we're not getting the XP on them that we're holding if we're not using them in an active lineup.
Right.
And I have too many cards to give XP out to. So it's like you've kind of taken away that holding benefit by taking away the passive XP and not giving us enough back out. So like I think I like the old XP system better than the current one. I wish it was different again. I don't know if people have better ideas for like how to restructure that, but I don't know. I thought something that was like, didn't have a cap for one. So like, people that hold it the longest have the most benefit. But also having it be, constant. Where it's like, oh, I actually know how much I'm getting, and I know the pace I'm getting at, and I can do the math on how that relates to other ones and where they're at. So it's one of those things where it's like, it would also give more value to older cards that had been held longer.
Yep. So,
because if somebody's held one that's 4 seasons old versus somebody that's held one that's 2 seasons old, I know what I'm getting out of that. So, and also it would add value to cards that have been traded less because of, I don't know if they would keep the XP halving thing, but so if it's an older card that hasn't been touched and somebody's just kept it since the inaugural rookie year, it's going to have way more XP than a card that's bounced around to Paul Trader or somebody else half a dozen times, etc. Right? So I don't know. There are kind of a few dynamics to my proposal that I like, but yeah, I was curious where other people stood on that one.
So the weird thing about the absence of passive XP is your in the simplest form. Let's say you have 10 cards and one goalie. Like the players that you're playing with that goalie are the only ones that can get it. So you could hold a forward, your third forward, and maybe they're getting in the lineup like every so often, but they're only getting XP then. But if you've held them for just as long as the other ones, but they just get a lot less, I'm not sure what the reason is to make XP dependent on the lineup. Because like, why should one player get more XP? Why should one card get more XP than another because of another card that's in the lineup? Like, that doesn't, I think it's just because that's what they thought of. And now that they reward, XP, I think they're like, oh, see, do it however you want. And it's not really, it's not the same. The fact that I think XP was at its core about how long you've held a card. And now you have like these in-season cards that have way more XP than cards that were bought years ago, just because they were able to be blasted up.
Because it's, you also get, you gave people a way to skip the holding part of it.
Right.
And just say, inject it into my veins. Give me XP right now. No, I had an idea back when we had good old training lineups and had to set a dozen of those. I had the idea of creating a separate competition where it's like, you submit one lineup into the competition, and wherever you place is how much XP you get, like across the board. So it was like, oh, if I do better in my training lineup, I train the best, so I get the most XP out of it in that sense. But it's, instead of like sporadically spread across depending on scores, it was just, oh, here's how much I earned, so all my players get this much more. There's just a holistic kind of upgrade there.
Yeah, I think they have tried to reduce the impact of XP for some reason, and I don't know what it is. Because I think there was a competition that they ran last season that was all, the whole leaderboard was XP. I don't even remember what it was. One of those one-off ones. And it was funny because you could see a bunch of OG users like, we used to compete for cash, and now they're paying XP. And there were others that were like all in. Shout out to Hoodwink, who I think loves XP more than anyone else on the platform. But like XP competitions, people would play.
One more thing to do.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's all we're looking for. Some more stuff to do. Arena is one of the most underrated areas of Sorare, and we basically fund it ourselves as users. Why on earth has Sorare not lent more into this area like they said they would? Yorkie, that actually came up with, was that with Guy? But basically they admitted that they had other stuff to work on. That like Sorare 27 took up too much time. And so but it sounds like they are going to work on Arena at some point.
That's one of the problems. Like, having worked in tech space for a little while and working with developers, and you start to realize like, there's only so many things that can be worked on at a time, and development cycles take a while to plan it out, design it, build it, test it, etc.
Test it.
When you're
sorry.
Okay. Really quick on the testing bit of it. Like, just because I've seen some of that, I have more sympathy for that than I think most folks, just because like it's really hard to do thorough testing. Like, you can test something in a bubble and it works just fine. When you start to integrate it with other components and a very complex build, all those different integration points and the end-to-end process of like, okay, well, we had 6 people do testing for everything that we could think of, but as soon as you start to have 60,000 people doing it in all the other possible ways, of course the 60,000 people are going to come up with things that the 6 people didn't. And especially when you're churning the stuff out quickly, you might not spend as much time testing what you consider a small thing that you can patch pretty quick. So I have more sympathy to that, but yes, there are probably more bugs than there should be there. I forgot what I was going to say otherwise.
What were we talking about? Testing. It was something about Arena.
Oh yeah. Like when you're constantly changing the core game or restructuring the leagues or the cycles, or having to design a new set or a new game mode, and you're constantly rebuilding stuff, it doesn't give you as much time to build out new stuff. right? So like once you can stabilize the core of the game, it opens up more capacity to work on the other improvements and expansion that you're looking for. So I think if they can get to a point where they're like, all right, we're happy with the base game, then I think you'll start to see more things like new arena options and stuff like that start to come out. But it doesn't seem like they've landed on this is our home base of what we're trying to get out of the game yet. So
yeah. Last thing, have you used the new UI?
Briefly, I was trying to set some MLS lineups, and then I tried to set some all-star lineups, forgetting that MLS had a later deadline, and I missed the all-star lineup deadline. So there was that one. It took me a while to find the buttons on the bottom. Mm-hmm. I kind of wish they were on the top. That was me. But I think it's closer. I think it has the potential. I told them in Discord, I was like, whenever you guys release a UI change, it'd be kind of nice if you launched it at the same time as one of those things that like pops up and says like, hey, we moved some stuff around. Like, here's this thing over here. Here's this thing down here. And like training people when you release it on what those changes are, as opposed to just expecting people to find stuff and know like, oh, this is what that old thing was. Now is what it looks like. Here's where it moved to. So I think offering training in tandem with the changes is something that I would like to see Sorare do better in the future.
Yeah, I just a few tool tips wouldn't hurt around. I will say one of the best things I've ever seen a company do with like a redesigned website was when MFL redid theirs recently, and they released it at like a specific time. And I want to say that Sorare is too big to do this, but they're not. But basically they had this competition that started at whatever time it was. And you had to go throughout the site and find these small little like puzzle pieces and basically like collect them to put this puzzle together. But the idea was like you were searching all over the website for it. And so you were like, oh, here's a new page. And it was like, it got you used to like figuring out where everything was, that by the time you went to use the site, you were like, oh, I know where this is because I found that puzzle piece there. And it's like every page that you were looking at wasn't brand new anymore. And I remember like being in the middle of this competition and being like, this is getting all of us to figure out where everything is on the page, which basically tricked us into learning the site in 10 minutes, with where the number of people who have asked me in the last day, like, how do I put in an all-star lineup? And it's like, yeah, that's all.
I think I'm trying to think of the word, kinesthetic learning, I think is the name of that, right? So like, some people learn better through reading something, writing something, listening to something, right? I think most people learn better by doing. Mm-hmm. So when you force them to actually clicking on the thing and going through the action and going through that process themselves, it's going to sink in a little bit better. So it makes sense. That hopefully Sorare takes a tip there.
Yes. Hopefully. You got anything else?
Well, I'm just curious, if you were designing the game, what would you change?
So I've learned that I'm really bad at stuff like that. Because I feel like I constantly will come up with something and be like, why don't you do this? And then as I'm explaining it, I'm just like, oh, wait, that doesn't work. And it's why I have like a lot of sympathy for Guy and whoever the game design team at Sorare, because it's really difficult to do this stuff. Yep. And particularly when the goal isn't just like make a fun game, because there are just so many other factors that go into what you have to consider doing this stuff. And so I try to not write articles like yours, because eventually I get a quarter of the way and I'm like, oh yeah, this doesn't work. So I let you people like you do it, and then let Sorare come up with their ideas, and then I can just pick holes in them when I want. It's much easier that way.
All right. Okay. So fair. So what is the biggest hole you see with my proposal, other than the like, how do we convince people to make the change?
I think the because I've only read it, I think I have to do it. I think it's too complicated. But I also think it's one of those things that once you play it, it's probably super simple. And so, but like having, it'll take time for people to learn. Like having multiple unlimited scarcity cards that are not the same, but they look, but maybe the same, and then moving up. But again, I think like we all think Sorare is super complicated. We say it's super complicated, but we just do it. Like when it comes to it, it's not like we have people who've been playing for 2 years now and are like, wait, what's essence? Or like, why can't I do this? Like there are questions why can't I craft right now? And inevitably it's like, well, it's either a bug or, well, they told us we can't craft right now because they're, in between seasons or whatever it is. And so just at the surface, as you said, it's a lot. And so, when you have that, people don't love to read that much. Your blog was like half the length of Sorare blogs, and people complain about how long Sorare blogs are. Like I've had multiple people tell me they don't even read them and they just wait for somebody to talk about it because they don't want to read it. And then they come up with the questions and they're like, oh yeah, that was in the blog. Like,
my pet peeve is when people don't read it and then complain. Maybe read it first and then complain. I don't know. That's my gripe. But
yeah, I think, I think it didn't, that's all it was. I think it was just a lot to ingest, well, both. But reading through it, it all kind of makes sense. And I think the reason it makes sense is because it solves kind of the big issues of the current finite rewards for infinite users, progression up scarcities, and then being able to use cards more than one season. Like that's exactly the problem the problems we're trying to solve. And I say that we're trying to solve. It's not our job to solve them. Like we
have a big stake in whether if it gets solved. We're impacted by it, but it's it's one of those things. It's odd being so involved in Sorare in the sense of like most companies have make changes, make mistakes, and like you don't even notice because it doesn't directly impact you.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you're a gamer and you're also spending what's probably a lot of money to most people in the game, what the game looks like, how it works, you care deeply about. So people are very observant of every decision that gets made, why it gets made, how it gets made, and very critiqueful of that. So it's a different dynamic. I do feel for Sorare because there's no winning most of the time. You're gonna piss off somebody with every change. So it's just that's where like what I want from Sorare is just conviction of like, this is what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, and like having a clear idea of like, this is what we want Sorare to be. Mm-hmm. And then just bringing people along for the ride, as opposed to, I think what they've tried to do is like, they want to listen to folks and incorporate ideas from people. But if you have 100,000 people or however many people play this game pulling you in different directions, you might not like where you end up. So I want somebody to be driving the car, steering the ship in the direction that they see it fitting in that sense.
I think that's perfectly said. And it would be really great to have, I love that you use the word like conviction of what they envision this platform to be, because it does feel like a lot of the decisions that they make are announced with the line that we all know and love. We know you love. And they're like, see, we're giving you what you want. And it's like, it's not necessarily the best way forward with that. But going back to what you were saying about how we're kind of like invested in it as well, is kind of reminded me of the number of times where people will, there'll be a change or they'll announce something and they're like, man, we know their game better than them. And it's like, yeah, we probably do spend more time on it than they do. Yeah. Like that, we're faulting them for like our obsession with the game, which I think tends to be a little unfair. Not to like stick up for them, but
somebody has to sometimes. I don't know. It's
right. Well, yeah, I was apparently sticking up for them, saying that the new UI was great and easy and all of this, and people were like attacking me about it. And I was like, I don't know.
So have you released a training video on it yet?
Don just made a comment about that he thinks I should do that because I used to do it for Sorare data. I haven't. I didn't plan on it. I did find it funny that somebody did one, and Tolga, they posted it on Twitter, and Tolga like wrote back like, "Oh, by the way, you could do this instead," and it was like 5 steps easier than what they did. I mean, no, I've not done that. They have not asked me to do it, and I don't plan on doing it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
But
yeah. Have they? Sorry, do you know? Have they? I know they were looking for like more creators. Do you know? Have they expanded their creator pool?
How do I answer this? So they
I can't answer, but
no, there's I don't know anything that nobody else knows. They have this new creator program that you can apply to. I don't know what it takes to get in. I think I was in it before they announced it because they have like a Discord set up for content creators. It generally is just a place for content creators to bring up bugs or tell other people that their content is out. And then every so often there's an announcement coming today. Like the part 2 of the gameplay announcement, they told us ahead of time. They told us like an hour earlier, and they were like, get ready for it. And I was like, oh, okay. Like we don't get anything early. Like so I don't know what their content plans are. And frankly, like I shouldn't, like, me not knowing doesn't mean anything, but
it's one of those things like you would wish like something so rare something tied to Sorare would be released with that, right? So whether it's a sponsored content creator that's putting out training material or they're embedding something into the site, right? It's one of those things where it's like you'd like to see them get as a company of like, hey, let's incorporate this into the site and either bring a creator in or have Sorare do it.
I'll answer this in 2 ways. The first is I think bringing in somebody to explain the changes. It's meaning Sorare hiring somebody to do a video to explain the changes inevitably turns out to be somebody who doesn't know the game, is trying to explain changes to an audience that really knows the game. And so the other option is using existing content creators to do that work, which makes sense. I've never been approached with that, and they don't do it anyway. It almost feels like they are too big to rely on content creators. I know that sounds weird. But when they're like renting out a studio to do a keynote that is much smaller than the Ryan Spoon ones that they used to do in like the Temu, Apple studios that they, with their big screens and random sports celebrities. So they're not there anymore, but it seems like once they got to that point, they were like, we can't have some content creator in his mother's basement making tutorials on our website. And I'm not sure I disagree with that, but but they do need something like,
some middle ground.
Yeah. Something. I'd like to see them get a streaming setup better than the 12-year-old bedroom first. Yeah. Communication is one of their weak points. I actually don't think they're, well, I don't know. I don't
people complain about Discord. They complain about Twitter. I don't know what people want them to do. Like, it seems like you should just release it on all of your media channels.
So that I agree with. The problem is that they don't do that. And what inevitably happens is like announcements happen in Discord replies or Twitter replies that not everybody sees. And then it comes down to like somebody asking in a Discord and Hoodwink sharing the screenshot from a different Discord, or the tweet reply. It's like, oh, see, they answered it. And it's like, yeah. I don't know where they'd be without Hoodwink. That's all. Any other questions for me? Now I feel like I'm the one getting interviewed.
I was trying to bring you in, but yeah, just curious where your mind's at on stuff. But yeah, I won't pick too much if you don't want to try and pick it apart.
No. I'm fine with that. I can talk about Sorare content all day. Like, not talk about Sorare all day, but like Sorare content. I could. Yeah, I have a lot to say about it, and probably some things I shouldn't say, but that's why we do members only stuff.
So obviously, it's like you don't want to do every type of content. Is there a type of content that you think is missing from the people that do Sorare stuff?
That's a great question. I think it's probably the how-to stuff. Genuinely, I think there's a significant lack of it, and I say that as somebody who has not looked for how to play Sorare content in 6 years. So like maybe it does exist. Although I did. So somebody reached out to me on Twitter today asking for like a Sorare 27 guide. Like, have you done one? Has anyone done one that you could like send me to? And I was like, there are plenty of videos of responses to the Sorare 27 announcement. And that's basically it. Cause I went right to Quinny's channel. I went to NEP, and maybe it's in other languages that I don't speak. So I don't know what they're actually saying in these videos. But the biggest problem that we had, and it was actually a big problem that I had at Sorare Data, that once you do a video, you're just sweating a change that makes the video obsolete. And it's not even like a gameplay change, but it's like, oh yeah, go to this screen and this is where you'll find it. And then like tomorrow they're like, oh no, this is now under the arena tab. And you're just like, well, there goes my video. And so selfishly, it feels like a waste of time to do that kind of content. But I wish other people did it.
Or it just means you get to make more content because you get to redo it.
Yeah. I mean, you can do more. You get to do more.
It's just a reason for new content. It gives you more ideas. Yeah.
You're not wrong about that. It's, that's not really the more content that I'm looking to do. The same content, just updated. But I should do one. And part of the reason I was recently thinking of doing it is because there's this backlash that Sorare is too complicated. And I just don't think it's as complicated as people make it seem. Particularly the people who have played Sorare for a long time, look at all of the changes, hate them, and then say, this is way too complicated for new users, not recognizing that new users don't know all of the background that we know. And so it's all kind of like fresh to them. What they see is way different. And so it's just, I don't know. So part of me wanted to make it's like spiteful content to be like, see, it's not that complicated. But the other, like, you inevitably go into the risk of making a video and then it actually is quite complicated. Like the person's like, hey, I did this quick video about the new Sorare UI and it was like 12 minutes long. And it's like, do you really need 12 minutes to describe how to play a game? And maybe the answer is yes. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I don't know if anybody does Sorare TikTok stuff, but I feel like if you can condense information down to shorter segments like that, I think there might be an opportunity there.
It's funny you say that. So in this content creator Discord that they have, there's like there's a channel that just says YouTube videos podcast. So everybody just posts their links in there. And then there is literally a specific TikTok channel. One guy posts in there. Two.
Never come across anything, which I don't know. I find surprising.
I'm not on TikTok enough to know if there's any. Mostly because I just planted my flag on YouTube and that's it. But Maybe there is. I don't know. Yorkie said the new UI would be so much better if they hadn't messed with all the names and categories. Too many things are now arena. I think if you're brand new, maybe it makes sense, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Our leaderboards are, I didn't look close enough.
Those are arenas now.
Those are arenas? Yeah, that I don't like.
I agreed.
Yeah,
Ricomon said the only TikToks I've seen were paid ads.
Oh, that's true.
And Yorkie said TikTok's the wrong age range for Sorare, surely.
It's when TikTok started, it was the kind of teenager audience, but now there's every sort of tutorial content on there. Like I come across like FPL content creators of like, hey, here's who I'm targeting in my lineup this week, or here's what I'm targeting for transfers this week in none of my FPL stuff. Like I've seen those on there, but I haven't seen anybody do like Sorare stuff, like with like something with like sets, right? Like if I could anticipate somebody releasing something or maybe doing live stuff where it's like, oh, hey, here's this time slot of teams that are playing right now. Here's who I'm looking at building into my set for this time slot or this game week. Something like that.
And you also have to remember, just there's so many people on TikTok that inevitably there are going to be enough that are in the age range you need. That's all. But yeah, I've got, I don't know. I don't know if I can do a walk through the UI. So the other thing is, it's one of those that like, if I wanted to do it today, there's no prem anywhere. And so it's difficult to, you just have to wait you just got to wait. That's all.
Did you say there was a way to see all lineups at once?
Yes.
How do I do that? Help me right now.
For the current game week?
Yes. Or current one.
All right. So you go current one. So on the side here, there's the field, and then it's like a list icon. It's literally called lineups. And then you can just go to arena or pro. It's probably all in arena, unless you played, I don't know. MLS screws things up now. But that's where I see my lineups.
Okay. Yep.
And then there's a button on the bottom to quickly go over to pro. I don't have any pro lineups, like hot streak lineups this week. And then scarcities are on the bottom. I don't know what this button does. Let's see. Oh, these are the matches. Uh-oh. Who scored 95 that I have? Wow. Missed opportunity there. I don't even know who this guy is.
Yeah, I don't. Like, why can't I go from, well, they're like little geography thing of like, hey, here's the country of the league.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go from like that screen to seeing all my lineups. Like I want to go from there. I don't want to go back to the navigation bar.
So I believe the idea is that this play button is your lineup builder, and then the next one, your lineups, is where you should check everything.
Why are they separate? I don't know.
Because one is where you build your lineups, and one is where you see your lineups.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see the lineups as I'm building them. I also don't know. They had semi-recently released a patch where you could like drag and drop players between lineups. Does that still exist in this one?
I don't think so.
Because like that was helpful.
It was really helpful.
I want that back.
I agree that they should bring that back.
Also, I thought with the geography thing that you'd be able to like scroll across like around the world to get to the country that you wanted.
Oh, like drag the globe, basically?
Yeah, like a dynamic map.
That would
like zoom in and out of the map to get to the country you're looking for, as opposed to just. I mean, it's kind of a cool like background, but it doesn't really add anything.
Ricardo from Sorare Inside had this great joke. I was like, "We know you love stadiums, so we put a stadium inside a stadium." Yeah, just let me spin the globe to get to Korea.
Yeah, or zoom out, zoom in. I don't know. Dynamic globe. I don't know. If you're going the geography aspect.
Yeah, why do you think they use a stadium instead of just the whole world for All Star and U23?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't. See, I mean, they do some cool stuff, but I don't know why they do some of the stuff that they do.
like this whole redesign.
Yes. Yeah, just I don't know everything.
Well, so the comments that I've seen from some people are like nobody was asking for this, so like why did they do it all? And what they did was like they surely got feedback that people don't know where everything is, and so they're like, oh, all right, we'll redesign it. And the phone stuff, like I think it's mobile native now. Like desktop is the secondary, so they have to do it that way.
Do you use the app at all?
No.
Okay, yeah.
So
yeah.
Not only do I not use the app, like I'll use Sorare on my phone all the time, but I just do it in a browser.
100%.
And the reason that was the case is that I turned all notifications off on the app. And even when I was logged out, I was still getting notifications, but only random ones, which was really annoying. Like I would get someone losing a clean sheet, even though I didn't have any like match notifications on. And then I wouldn't get like a new offer's been. So I just got rid of it. I can't do it. Maybe it works. It just never worked well for me.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that uses it. But.
Don said, also those teenagers that were early adopters are in their 20s now, probably. There we go.
Not wrong.
Yorkie said, have you ever checked your age demographic on YouTube and Twitter? My Twitter is 47%, 25 to 34, and that's the highest. I think my YouTube one is higher, is whatever age range is above that. Let me see. I will tell you that there is not a single woman that watches my content, according to YouTube.
Don't know how many play Sorare, to be fair.
There was a time where I had one. It was like not even 1%, but it looked like it was one. All right, let's see here. My biggest age range, is 25 to 34. Yeah, 46.2%. And then 35 to 44 is the next highest at 37%. Oh man, I'm moving age brackets this year.
It actually reminds me, and I know we're like approaching 2 hours here. But I was going to ask you, when you think about like a target audience for Sorare, not necessarily like demographics of the type of person, but like when you think about target audience of like somebody that plays fantasy sports, one of the things that like that I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but like they're probably already a fan of the sport. They're probably watching most games, or at least some games. If I were to ask you like how many like soccer games do you think the average person that plays fantasy soccer watches? How many leagues do they watch? How many teams do they watch? Like how many games in a weekend? I would say like you probably like the target audience probably already watches some games or a game if they maybe have a favorite team, maybe two teams like I'm Sounders and Man City, but like I don't have 5 teams that I support.
Yeah.
So like one of my gripes a little bit is people talk about Sorare as this global game, and it's like there's this expectation that because we've been around for so long that we all have to play all leagues all the time, which like if we were really designing a fantasy game, I would probably design it around my audience of like, I'm going to design MLS around the MLS audience. I'm going to design EPL around the EPL audience. I'm not concerned about making sure that everybody plays every league. I want to make sure that each individual league is as good as it can be for those people.
So I think Sorare is I think Sorare looks super complicated because they offer all of these leagues. And I think they offer all of these leagues because they want anybody who likes a league to be able to play. I think Nicholas said once, I mean, this was like years ago, that they would love to have every league in the world because they want anybody anywhere in the world to be like, man, I would love to play a game with this league if you live in Peru or wherever, we have a game for you. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think the problem is that it's a global game, but it's really just a global audience for the same game, just in different countries. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing. But where I think they went wrong and continue to go wrong in terms of what their target audience is that what they think their target audience is football fans. And that's just like the jump between being somebody who follows football all the time and then plays fantasy football is gigantic. Like everyone's like, there are 20 million people who play FPL. And you're like, And then the people who talk about like the football world audience, and they're like 6 billion people love football. And it's like, yeah. And you're 6 billion to 20 million is really tiny. And 20 million is the most popular game. And so now you're like, well, what if I like Austrian Bundesliga? You're like, all right, now that's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so I think that they need to just realize that their target audience are fantasy players. Mm-hmm. Like people who really like fantasy sports. A lot of them play multiple sports. A lot of them learn new sports because there's a fantasy game attached to it. And does that cap the number of people that could be in your audience? Absolutely. But you're also not getting the 6.8 billion football fans around because you're like, hey, do you know what a tackle one is? And they're like, maybe, I guess. Like, and they don't care, but we're degenerates about it. Not in a bad sense, just like we love the game of fantasy, and that's who I think they need to go after. Or these collectors that, if we can convince them that these cards are collectible.
One day. Yeah, I never resonated with the time zone complaints. I never found validity in those. Like, yes, the games happen at the times that are suitable for the place that it's playing in because that's the target audience. Like,
right.
Of course, the time zone differences. Like, why should Sorare ignore time zone? Like, they exist. Like, It's a thing. Just deal with it. So, like, I don't know. I shouldn't make sacrifices for MLS for a U.S. audience to compensate for somebody halfway across the world that's middle of the night. I shouldn't have a worse experience because they're in a different time zone.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So,
Dilly dilly. If they want every league in the world, when Prem?
Yes. Do you think they get it back?
Yes.
I like the optimism.
I don't think it's this season though. Like I think they go the entire season without it. Yeah. And not to say the quiet part out loud, but I think there's a pretty important court case that probably decides whether they get it or not.
I don't think I probably won't buy any more Prem cards until they get the license back, to be honest.
You're not into the cohort cards?
The big head MLS cards were cool just because it was like the first time thing and it was, still getting Sounders guys, but like the collectability aspect of it, there's a heavy reliance on it being a licensed
official
product.
Yeah.
So just the fact that it has the player's face, it's still cool. You can still have a fun game with it, but yeah, from a collectability standpoint, I'm not going to overspend on chasing in-season stuff for stuff that isn't official.
I think I feel the same way, to be honest. I say that, and I did buy one of the World Cup cards. But I think it was just because it was the cheapest, and I already forgotten the guy's name. He went to Brighton. Michael Svoboda. I
don't know him.
It was this Austrian card. This is the only one I've bought.
I mean,
I kind of liked it because it was a flag edition card.
Yeah.
But that's the only one.
Yeah, the flag ones give it a little bit more authenticity, I think,
Agreed.
than just like the brand shirt. So,
But yeah.
I saw Prinksy sold his unique Ronaldo.
Yep.
Well,
Franksy trades.
Yeah, I thought he was going to sell it for $100,000, but I guess he relinquished that idea here.
It was a pretty quick flip too, wasn't it?
It was. It was. I think slightly more than what he paid, just barely.
I mean, huge ETH gain.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's probably the right play, to be honest. Then
it was probably all in cash anyway, but
yes.
And I think it was more just because of what's happened to ETH over the last.
Yeah. I wish I could dictate certain cards in certain prices or certain currencies.
Huh.
Like I want my cheap card. Like I want my cheap like $5 limited cards. Just like give me the cash, because most people that play limited don't have ETH.
Mm-hmm.
Like my big expensive cards, if I'm selling those, I want those ones in ETH. I don't have that option. It's as soon as you unlock the cash wallet, it's all I get now. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I want ETH back.
I got an offer for ETH the other day, and I was just like floored because I was like, wow, people, there is somebody else here.
There's a few of us left.
As I say, I'm not even a crypto guy. It was more that I was like, wow, that's a lot of ETH. And I'm like, man, ETH is not, there's a reason that's a lot of ETH.
Yeah. We're in the depths of the crypto bear market at the moment. We're not that anybody's a crypto fan, but we're currently paying attention to is if the Clarity Act passes. Mm-hmm. You have some regulation there. So hopefully another 6 to 12 months, be in a better place. But I'm an ETH bull.
Still.
Oh, forever and always. If ETH fails, crypto failed. And if ETH fails, I'm going down with the ship.
We have to do another show about that. Mostly because I'm not a crypto guy, but it's really sport.fun that makes me more like my eyes open more to the crypto market, just because most of that community is Twitter, crypto Twitter. And so just things on my timeline pop up and I'm like, oh, wow, there are still people doing this, huh?
Yes. I did not approve of the Solana move. That one hurt.
I mean, this is going to be a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
But how could you sleep on all the benefits we've gotten from adding Solana? No.
They open sourced their API, which they probably could have done on ETH as well. So I don't know what they really gained by it. I don't know if they had future plans that are yet to come to fruition with that. Time will tell, but that was.
Yeah. And also the face of the Solana migration, and apparently somebody who worked on it a lot, is not there anymore anyway. So, anyway, b.hab, that was a lot of fun. I've taken up a lot of your time. You said you didn't have a time limit, and now we're at 2 hours and 3 minutes, and I feel like that's me taking advantage of your time.
Yeah, so. What's the record on the longest stream there?
Oh, that's a good question. It's actually a very good question. I'm sure I could find that at some point.
Right, let me know who the record holder is. Might have to beat it sometime.
Well, yeah. Nepenthes has long tried to convince me to do like 6 to 8 hour streams. And I'm not sure I can sit that long. I don't know. Anyway, thanks everyone for coming. Please make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Shout out to Quinny. b.hab, do you have any other ideas for your next article yet? Oh, you do?
Not that I'm willing to share, or not that I'm ready
Perfect.
to share.
Oh,
still
there we go. Well, I'll look forward to that. Let me know if you have any questions or I can help in any way. So yeah, everyone, thanks for coming. Please make sure you hit that like button. And of course, please make sure you get outside.